It is 6 p.m. It is POP Baking Club, and you are the POPers, and we are all here together. And now you are all allowing me to say goodbye to my studio apartment that I work out of. I am going to take you on a tour of my kitchen, my storage area, and where I work, so you can learn how I clean, organize, and how I look at every space like a professional chef. Because you can take what I know and you can apply it to your home, your life, your work. These are all behaviors and processes that you can apply to any part of your life, and you'll be more organized and happier. We have to be out of this studio by the end of the month. But tonight it's going to be maybe a little bit jilty here and there, because I'm going to be running around and showing you things, but we're going to be talking about cleaning, organizing, and stuff like that. And believe it or not, I get a lot of questions. Anything I share with you is not to make your life more complicated or to get you to spend money. It's to help you save money, save time, and save frustration. And that is the truth. Let me just start, for those of you who don't know, my name is Kathleen. I'm a certified executive pastry chef, and I now teach on TikTok. I made a notes for my lecture today and my demonstration of my kitchen and organization practices, and it lives on Substack, and I wrote it all out. There's some good concepts there and some good ideas. Ah, yeah, my sunflowers. These sunflowers are so inexpensive. We'll start there. I buy inexpensive flowers, and you can buy cheap flowers if you buy one color. Now, sunflowers are fun in a couple colors. They're inexpensive, but you need to trim them every single day and give them fresh water. And I don't just dump the water out. I clean out the vessel, refill it, cut them just a little bit, and put them back into the vase. And they literally last me a week and a half. But if you're going to buy inexpensive flowers, you can even buy carnations. If you buy them all one color and make them profuse, you'll get a really good impact without spending a ton of money. And the longer the flowers are, the longer they'll last you, because you just trim a little bit. And you can get a couple weeks out of some flowers, which is great. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pull back. I'm going to give you a landscape view of my kitchen. I work in an apartment. It's a one-bedroom apartment, it's residential, but I've turned the whole thing into my pastry studio. So the kitchen is where I have all my dishwashing, my food, baking, and anything that I'm really working on that's edible. But in that room, which would normally be a family room, is where I have my computer, my library collection, and some pretty pots and pans. I love copper pans. And then in this room back here, I have a storage area where I keep most of my tools and supplies and a file cabinet, and I'm gonna show you how I look at everything. All right, so let's see. I've got my notes, gonna bring these back. Let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on some lights and get a little light on the situation. I'm gonna flip the camera so that you can see where I work and you can get an overview, and then we'll move in tight on everything. So this is where I work every day, right here at this very small, that's my countertop. That's where you see all of my videos. And we live in a beautiful spot. That's also why I'm sad to leave. We live right over there. That's a different building. So I go back and forth all day, and so does my dog Lou. So, panty back, if any of you have ever seen any of my clean and organization videos, you've seen my kitchen, plenty, if I don't hurt myself. So this is the kitchen. Any residential kitchen, you don't need fancy flooring, you just need everything to be washable. And here I have some of my books, some of my tools. There are my cake stands. I like glass, I like continuity. A lot of what I do is all in the same color scheme. So I buy everything in white, wood, silver, copper, anything natural like marble, but it's all meant to create a cohesive ease when you're looking at stuff. So that is my kitchen. Maybe we'll go a little bit closer. So I'll come from over here so you can see this part. So this is coming in the door. So it's just a little reverse view. And I'll highlight things as we go along, because I don't want to stick with just one thing, but as I go, I'm going to be mentioning concepts you should keep in mind. Here is my scaling station. I have a scale, tape, which is painter's tape, which is not stick to stuff unless you get it wet, a fine point Sharpie, and I have 3 sizes of deli cups and lids, which are the refrigeration kind, not the hot kind. I have a single basin sink. I have deep drawers. And I have a magnetic knife holder that obviously magnetizes to my range. This is not safe with kids, I understand. But for me, that works. If you have somewhere you can put this on your backsplash or elsewhere, it's very convenient. And I also have a little container here that I don't normally have. We usually use it in our home, but it has an instant read thermometer, and it's from IKEA. And it's a little bin that we put on the range top. I don't have a range top here. So this is my closest stand to where I work. Deli cups are reusable and you have to wash them. And every time I wash them, I sanitize them and I allow them to air dry and then they go back on here. The great thing about having a scaling station is it takes up barely any room. I have them on trays and I like using trays to consolidate things. A small typically holds under 200 grams of most ingredients, a medium about 250 and a large around 500, and it depends on the ingredient. And then they crack eventually. If I were selling a food product and sending it out in a deli cup, I would put it in a brand new one, and that's a clear distinction. So if you're washing them and sanitizing them and using them for scaling, that's fine. Something's going to be baked further. But if you're sending out mousse, or you are, prepping foods that you're selling to a restaurant to use for their desserts, you're definitely going to want a brand new deli cup. So let's start here. So this is my cabinetry that I go through on the daily when I am working, and I will give you brands and you'll have to Google them. I hesitate to tell people where to buy stuff because I don't want to tell you where to buy everything, and I want you to find the best price. But these are bowls and they're ingenious. They can go in the microwave for short blasts. I don't cook in the microwave, I just warm things up. But what's great about them is they nest, and you can use them for scaling in all these different sizes. You'll see these in my videos. I think they're amazing, and my large ones are in the other room and I'll show those to you later. These are just things like my compostable plates, my dessert plates that you'll often see in my videos. And then things like this I buy in a couple different sizes. This is NSF. That is a certification that equipment and supplies gets that is food safe and can endure the use of the kitchen. And this is a 2-quart, and I have it in small guys, and I have a couple 4-quarts as well. That's what my flowers are in. I have a little bit of glass, but glass is typically not used in the commercial kitchen. It's very dangerous and it's not advisable. And then I have some plastic bowls up here and other things that I use a little less frequently. Now I am switching to white painter's tape, and I use a dispenser like this. But if you have a piece of acrylic from the hardware store, you can load this up with your tape and do all of your scalings right on here. This is really convenient. You can tuck this into a book or your bag and take it with you. So that is convenient. Let's see. Let me move you over here. Good, I'm glad you like the, I am like an organization fiend. It's kind of natural to me, but also it makes me feel better. So today, one of my biggest pieces of advice to people, if you're struggling to get your house clean, invite people over, because I knew you were all coming, so I spent the day making sure that everything was ready. And that's a good thing. So I don't live over here, so I don't have a pantry that I eat out of constantly, but I do make tea every morning. And I take everything, and we're going to talk about this. I don't just use deli cups for scaling. I use them for everything. Because if you have things in larger containers, and let's say you have a giant Cambro container, but you only have this much ingredient at the bottom, you can consolidate it into these different sizes. So when I buy gum or I buy cough drops, I take them out of the original container and I put them in here. They're not 100% airtight, but it helps. So I have my sugar-free gum, which I love because I'm eating sugar a lot and it's good for your teeth. And then here I have coins, which are useless. But anytime I have change, I throw it in here, and here are my spent batteries. And a lot of you say you should use rechargeable batteries. Well, I do. We have some, but I also have regular batteries. And so when they're spent, I take them to, let's say, Home Depot, and they have a recycling program. So I store them there. And this brings in the concept of everything in your home, in your kitchen, has a home. It lives somewhere. So if anyone in your household says, where does this go? You say, where does it live? And you know that wherever it lives, that's where it lives. And when you want something to look like this, I'm the only one who works in this space. So this always looks like this. Nobody messes it up. But I've worked in a lot of kitchens, and I've trained a lot of people on how to keep organized. So if this is how you want it, you have those people take a photo of it as a reference. This is how you want it to look. And when I look in here, what I see is all the handles are facing forward. I can just reach up and grab it. That makes sense, right? And all the labels are facing forward. My honey, I don't have a ton in here, but they're all facing forward. And another thing that I do is I have a Sharpie with everything that I do. I not only write on boxes, maybe a use by date or a gluten percent, like a protein percentage, or any information that I want to know. I just write right on the box. Here are my instructions for my tea. This is loose leaf tea by Rishi. I love it. And you know, just as an aside, I use a mini digital scale to do my tea every day. And that over here, the little Hello Kitty, it's a water boiler, and it actually heats my water to the exact temperature that I need it. And if you read this teeny tiny little print, it tells you 10 grams at 200 degrees for 4 minutes. So rather than having it be something I have to find, because this is, you know, and they're all kind of written differently, and sometimes they don't have the instructions here, they have it in an insert. So I write what I need with a Sharpie. So the Sharpie is invaluable. All right, so that goes up there. So that's how it should look, and that's how it looks all the time. And over here, it's more decorative. But I have a butter churn. I love making butter. This is my little thing. I don't know if you've seen these for knife cuts, but if you're practicing knife cuts, they have these little samplers that all the different, the baton and the cubes, and you know how to make these different shapes. And you can get these online. It's basically called ardculinary.com. And I just think it's cute. It's almost like a toy. But it's really good practice, and I have used it. These are my vanilla beans. Just today, I checked them out, and I added a little bit of water, just a tiny bit, because your vanilla beans should be pliable. This summer, these were really brittle. Well, look, they're becoming flexible because I have not saturated them with water, but I'm going to use a couple of my spidey senses. They smell great, so they're fresh, they're good. These last a very long time. I've had these for at least 5 years, very expensive. And I add a little bit of water. They got dry over the summer, and now they're rehydrating. And I can just turn this upside down, check it every now and then, add a little bit of clean. I use reverse osmosis or filtered water. I think that's a good idea. And then I have rice. This is rice that I use either to put in a box to dry out a meringue or a tart shell, or I might use it to put into a pie crust to do a blind bake. Sometimes I like using the jars, but most of the time I just use deli cups. I always label everything with my painter's tape. Now painter's tape you'll typically see in blue, and sometimes you'll see people put the label, and a label should read like a story. You should never guess what's inside. You should know the use by date, the name of the ingredient. If you put the label here, it is because it's on a cabinet where I can see it here. But if this is on a tray and I'm pulling it out of a speed rack, I want that label on the top. So there's no rule. You have to know what's more practical, what you can see and what you can't see. So I'll show you the drawers, and then we'll move around the kitchen. I like to look at a kitchen space as if it's a blank slate. I think that home kitchens are a suggestion. When you move in and there's just one area where the sink is and a little area to work, the rest is fair game. So you don't necessarily have to put anything where people think you should put it. So I don't build kitchens the way other people do. And I am looking for efficiency and variability. I want to be able to adjust everything. I want to be able to move things around. I like them to have wheels. I like to have shelves that are adjustable, and nothing is off limits. These are adjustable shelves. And when I move into a place, sometimes I'll take these all out and I will put them the way I need them according to how tall my tools are. But I will take one of the shelves and I will put it really low so it's narrow. And in that narrow space, I will put flat things, like flattened boxes, packaging, tissue paper, so that I'm not wasting the whole thing. So vertical storage is really important. Horizontal isn't as efficient, so it's good when you build in those fixes. All right, I'm gonna flip the camera and show you my drawers. This is just a drawer that I have random utensils. When I eat here, I have a lemon zester, can opener, some clips, a wine key. And here I have my mini digital scale and my most favorite and frequented spatulas. And I've seen a lot of people talk about these spatulas that come apart and they say they can't get them clean. I want you to know that they are intended, and oftentimes they're not even in wood, they're all in silicone. They are intended to be pulled apart when you clean them. And here are all of my 4-inch offset spatulas. and they all need to be oiled. And I oil these when I oil my boost table and all of my cutting boards. And then I have little mini spatulas. And as you can see, as I go through my entire kitchen, everything is in wood, white, or silver. See how much nicer it looks when everything's just a little cohesive? And then this drawer is actually kind of a mess, but I need everything in here. These are my silicone heat-proof spatulas. I don't like spoon spatulas, but I do like the minis. Those help me occasionally. I have all of my heat-proof spatulas for making caramelized stuff and for moving chocolate around. And then these are my whisks. And whisks come in a couple different ways. Firm, stiff, a little more bendy, narrow, and much wider. And they all have their own job, so you need to learn about your tools and use them the proper way, because one whisk is not like another. This is an example. I had this in school. I got it in my toolkit. So these come apart. That pulls off, and that's how you clean it. You don't clean it in one piece. Do you see the little white dot there? That holds it on, and then you pull it apart and you clean it and allow it to air dry, and then you put them back together. So there are my drawers. And these are old school drawers that they do not close on their own. This is a deep drawer. When I look into a drawer, like this didn't even fit. This part connects, but I just moved it way over, and then inside each one, I use one of these containers. This container is from the Container Store, and you'll see them at any Container Store right when you walk in. They are for sweaters, shoe boxes, and whatnot. I don't use them for food. They're not NSF, but I use them for storage. So here I have some really extra long tools, spatulas, and a zester. I have a pasta tool, which I actually use for gum paste. I have my torch, scoops, because I don't touch my food when I scale it. I use a scoop so that I can keep everything clean. I don't like my hands on my food. I've got bench scrapers. These are my pastry scrapers. These are not meant to scrape your countertop. The round side's for inside of a bowl, and the other side is for straight things, like a straight pan. And this is one of my favorite tools in the world, is the King Arthur bench knife. It's supposed to be just like this, but this is not sharp, but it's strong and it could hurt little fingers. So I love this for little kids. They can cut apples and be part of the fun. I have gloves that I order online. I have small hands, and then I keep my clean towels here. Obviously, they're all white. I have just two styles. One is for wet, for cleaning and wiping things, and a really well wrung out towel is much better than a wet, sloppy one that leaves watermarks. Once all that water dries, it leaves the film. And then these are my drying towels or hand towels, and these are all my aprons. And I keep my aprons forever, and that just keeps things easy. However many towels I use for one day. And they always go on something like this. This is a rolling rack, so that they can air dry before I put them in my laundry. You never want to put wet towels into a bag or into a laundry basket. You'll get mildew smelling and yucky. So this is another drawer. And in here you'll see I've utilized the principle of here's a container with kind of taller, those are my food colorings from Amerigel. This is a little mini prep for small jobs. I have some empty, I don't have a ton of stuff in here, but I have my pastry brushes are labeled for their different uses. I clean them and then I wrap them in clean paper towels so that they stay dry. I have some fancy stuff in here. This is for checking the sugar content of jams and things like that. I have an extra scale and other things. I have a couple extra scales, and there's a few things in there. So that is just, and it's low, it's down. I use this stuff all the time, but it's less of a priority. Here is an example of how I look at things differently than other people. These are supposed to pull out so that you can constantly pull them in and out. I just leave them and I put long things in there, like my cooling racks, my plastic bags, my pastry bags, and things like that. And that works for me. Now, this is very exciting to me. This is underneath my sink. And there are a lot of things going on under my sink that keep it organized. I like using magnets for a lot of things. You can always find magnetic surfaces. My gloves hang to dry from this clip I got at IKEA, and that's magnet. Now it could stay on here. It's a little too close to the door, but this way they'll dry. But I have also been known to place a metal plate onto the door with a very small screw, and then you can hang things on there with these clips. Let me pull this out because I'm going to show you. So then back in here, I have a toolkit, and those are more utilitarian things. So I'm going to show you what is inside my containers so that you can see how I think. Everything that I put into a larger container, I want to keep clean and not leach. You know how if you have a Comet container, it can get rusty and leave marks on the bottom of your... So I just put it into the deli cup. It's just a nice way to separate these things out. Every time I get something that's in a box, like SOS pads, and I love the Toss and Clean by SOS because they're small. That way they get used up and then you get rid of them. After I use one every day, instead of leaving it damp, I put it on top and it air dries for the next time. I like to use these rubber bands to keep my ingredients tight, and I just put them in this little cup. So the thing about cleaning supplies is every now and then you have to pull everything out of here, clean the bin, and then you have to wipe everything down. So your cleaning supplies should be clean. There's a big rule in my kitchen that when you pick something up, it shouldn't be sticky. I don't care if it's maple syrup or if it's your cleaning supplies. Nothing should be drippy or messy or dirty. Power dissolver. Power dissolver is great for getting rid of grease, but you have to be very careful. It will eat paint off of things, but you know the grime, and I don't have grooves in my cabinets, but you know if you have moldings in your cabinet and all of that gets like gritty and gross, this works really well, but you have to make sure it's not going to hurt the finish. You just don't leave it on that long. I also like to use it on range hoods, on my oven, on the parts of a pan that have crevices and stuff caked on, which I don't typically have. But it works on things that are stuck on, and it's amazing. I love it. And then this is my mystery oil by John Boos. I have a lot of wood. I have a couple of beautiful wood cutting boards, a wood table, and then anything else I have that's wood, my wood utensils, my 4-inch wood offset spatula, I oil everything. And it's doesn't need to be the John Boos. It can be any mineral oil. There's all kinds of great ones on the market. I just happen to have this. And then I even take my garbage bags out of their boxes, and these are my compost bags, and they go in a cup. So these are cups, and these are deli cups. And I have in here some scrubbies and a magic eraser. A magic eraser is basically sandpaper. I think they're amazing, but you have to be very careful with them. It's like a super fine sandpaper. They aren't used dry, they are used wet. So you have to get it wet and you have to squeeze it really well. But even then, I like to put a wet towel over it when I magic erase so that they work together. And I have white countertops and it gets the scrapes off of everything. This is good because if you have stuff like plastic containers or scuffs on your sink, it really does kind of gently sandpaper. But again, if you're using it on paint or something with a finish, you could sandpaper right through. So use it with caution, be very careful. So you can see how this whole thing works very well because I can just pull it in and out and keep it clean. The one thing I don't have here that I wanted to show you, I don't know where it went, I have a whole spray bottle of Goo Gone. And my rule, when I buy anything with a sticker on the outside, it comes on a Cambro, plastic containers, glass, a plate. You know how they stick the sticker right on there? I don't get it wet. I try to peel it off. And if not, I use Goo Gone. Goo Gone, to some people, is very sensitive to their hands. It can kind of burn your hands. It's really just really strong citrus oil, but you might want to wear gloves if you're sensitive to it. I've seen a lot of people be sensitive to it. But it needs time to work, so you have to spray it on and then you scrape it off. And really, you don't want to put that away until the sticky stuff is gone. I don't put anything away that has any kind of goop on it, any residual stickiness, ever in general. That's why I say I never have goop in my pots and pans. Because if I'm done doing dishes and I look and I see there's something there, it goes back into dish. And I've seen in many kitchens where the chef will go through and pull things that look clean but aren't and throw them back through dish. So I take a lot of time making sure everything is clean. I don't just wipe it down. I scrub it, I inspect it before putting it away. And everything you see in my kitchen today that's expensive and you think, ooh, all-clad's really expensive or that copper's really expensive. Remember, I'm 56 years old. I've received a lot of gifts through the years. People always give me things for kitchen, which is wonderful. But I also take really good care of my stuff. And my all-clad pans are 30 years old. My copper pans are 30 years old. So everything lasts forever if you clean in between and take care of it. I'm going to show you one more thing here real quick. You don't need a lot of tools in the kitchen, but you should have a straight razor blade, a level so that you can see if your shelving or anything else is straight, a Phillips and a straight screwdriver, and a little hammer is always nice. And then I have a tape measure, which I use all the time, and I just have this little, this came with a little drill that I bought, so I use it as my tool kit. But look at how I keep my bins. Everything is in an old Ziploc. So these are my new batteries, and I put labels and you can write on it. These are for my Samsung TV. It's feet I don't need, so I wrote on there so I'll always know what it is. I put like with like. These are all of my felt pads, and I keep them in here nice and neat. These are all my hooks for my pot rack. I love buttons, and these are all the buttons I've collected from the clothing I've worn for years. I want to do something with it at some point. And then these are other things, and you can write on what it's for. I really love hooks. S hooks. What do we have here? Different ones. I have tons of them. This is what I use to extend my organization. So this stays really nice. I can find everything I need, and I can clean this out every now and then. So this is just going to go back underneath and slide in. And I don't need to have a lot of clutter under there. If I'm not using something, I get rid of it. I consolidate, which means if something's low, I add it to something to make one bigger rather than having two that are half used. So we did this area. Now I want to do this area. This is one of my favorite areas of the kitchen. And this is a Metro shelf. You can get NSF quality at any container store, but you can also get them at any wholesale kitchen supplies places. But what I like about it is you can measure your space and get a shelf that works width and depth and height. So you can go super tall or really short. You can completely customize your kitchen. We have moved these things, they're really old, like 25 years old, and they look brand new, and I wipe them down regularly. But you can see I have this S hook here, and I have an electrical cord. I have no electric in this place, and so what I did is I had an electrician come and put extra electric here for me, and I have this short, multi-purpose electrical cord. I think it's 1 foot long. I don't know a lot about electricity, but what I do know is the longer your electrical cord is, that electricity has to go through it. So you want the shorter in it, you lose power. It's not as powerful. Not everything in the kitchen has high power needs, but when you plug everything in, you could blow a fuse and you could cause a fire and you could do a lot of things. So you want to think about getting any kind of extension cord should be as short as possible, and it should be powerful enough to take whatever. The one down here I use for my induction burner, and it is exclusive to that. Now I love drop down electrical. I don't have any here, I have it at the other house. If you don't have electrical in the middle of your kitchen, you can hang a hook and hang a drop down cord. That's the kind that's in like a round circle that has a hook on the top to hang it, and your cord is in there and you can pull it down, plug things in, and then it retracts away. I use it in our house because we have a center area with a lamp, and so that solves my electrical problem because we don't have floor electrical over there in the middle of the room. So that is often used. You'll see it in kitchens, and you can do it in your home. Super easy. Sometimes there's electrical in the ceiling that you can plug it into, or you can run that over to where you need it. But always be careful when you're adding electrical, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause a lot of problems. And I say that because induction burners are notorious for using a lot of energy. So on the bottom, this is my compost bin, and this is it's a home garbage can. My rules about garbage cans and compost bins is every single time you change the bag, you should wash out the bin. In a commercial setting, you're going to wash them every single day. So washing them whenever you take the bag out is not a bad deal. And I don't have it over here, but if you are looking for a flexible garbage solution, I love the Slim Jim, and I absolutely adore the Slim Jim trolley. It's a little trolley that the Slim Jim fits into, and you can get whatever size Slim Jim you want. They're very narrow, they can be very tall or shorter, but you can move that around with complete ease. It's called a Slim Jim trolley, and you can just Google it and find one. That's how I keep my garbage clean. It keeps the smell down. It makes my garbage cans look new forever. Garbage bags are not 100% waterproof. They do eventually leak. That's why when you wrap a cheesecake pan in saran, water gets in there. It's not 100% leak proof. I also have hooks here. This I hang my mandolin. out of the way, safe. So then I personally buy plastic wrap in bulk like this. I pay attention to how they smell because this thing is 5 years old. If it started to smell bad, I would get rid of it. It's not like you're using more plastic, you're actually being more efficient. I buy it in a 24-inch, 18, and 12. That way I use the width for the job that I need and I actually save. Instead of using Reynolds and then wrapping it 100 times and it still doesn't really work, you can buy these at like a Restaurant Depot or wherever, you can buy them online, and fit the wrapping to the job. Right here I have my induction burner and you can see I have a hook here to keep the cord nice and neat. This is another example of things that hang on this kind of shelving. This is from IKEA or maybe Container Store, but it holds my paper towel. Completely flexible. If I had it here, it'd be hard to use my microwave, but when I have it over here, it isn't. My microwave, I only use it for heating things up. Things spill, let's say I'm melting butter, and it ploops and it goes all over. I am not going to even wait till the end of the day to clean it. It needs to be cleaned right away. The longer you let any spills or anything set, the harder it is to clean. In a microwave, you have a lot of grooves and a lot of places where it can hide. And when you deep clean, you want to take your plate out and put it through the dishwasher or wash and sanitize it. You want to clean everything. But your microwave should be cleaned underneath on the countertop, all around and in the back, at least every 6 months. And anyone who looks at your microwave and touches it should not feel residue, grease, or anything. It should be clean all the time. It's for making food. And the best way to clean a microwave is to put a little water in there and heat it up in the microwave, because a warmer, moist microwave is going to clean a lot easier. I have one mixer, but I have 3 bowls. And I use, just like I use a deli cup, I use other containers to store my parts, and they become parts things. I try to wash this every 4 to 6 months, and sometimes I'll just look in and say, oh, there's some crumbs in there, and I'll throw it in the dish. You can also, rather than washing it and drying it, get a clean one and just do the swap. And I like to do that with food because I don't like moisture in there, but with tools it's not as big a deal. I keep my mixer in here. It's really tall, so it's awkward and it's hard to find a place for it. I'm going to show you these drawers. I've never used the dishwasher here, but this is my junk drawer. I just have things that I need as I'm heading in and out. This is mostly pie and sort of bread making tools and things. And then right here I have these are the rails that I use for rolling out dough. This is a fondant rolling pin, and this is my cotton for gum paste work, and then this is my long serrated knife. So they're safe in there, and you never want to put a knife in the drawer unless it has a knife guard. It's bad for your knives and it's not safe. And then down here I have my hand blender, a Dremel tool which you can use to write your name on things. And then I have some flour sacks and a heating pad I use to make a proofer. So that works very well. One of my favorite things to do, and I have it in 2 places in this apartment, I rent. This just looks like a white raw wall, right? I do these drawings and then I cut them out. It's like therapeutic, and they peel off. So when I leave, they just peel off. Not a big deal. This is actually dry erase paint that I took and did 2 coats. It should be very smooth, very shiny. And then you can write on here notes, to-do lists, whatever you need. I know I need AP flour and I need some more butter. And you can't leave this marker on here forever because it will start to stain. But if you take it off every few days, and I really just use a little bit of Windex to clean it. This is a way that I store. I got this at the Container Store. See how it's supposed to be for flowers, but I use it to hold tools when I'm doing gum paste that are frequently used. Because I have boxes of tools, but this is when I'm working. These are my favorite tools. So again, I don't own this place. This is built in, and you have the refrigerator in the center. Inherently, that's not good because refrigerators put off a lot of heat. However, there is an air gap and it doesn't get hot up here. Before I made a decision to put food in here, I absolutely made sure that it wasn't going to get warm. So when I open this, I categorize things just like I would in a professional kitchen. Like goes with like. I have my chocolate chips up here. These are mostly fruit. It could be dried fruit, it could be freeze-dried, but it's fruit. And then here are things like nuts, unless they're in the freezer. They're here if I'm actively using them. There's a flow of food. I'm always looking at dates. And that's another thing. If you want to write the dates right onto the bag, it's a great way for you to know what's fresh. Or you could write use first, things like that. And I don't open anything until I'm ready to use it. And sometimes if there's only a tiny bit at the bottom, I will transfer it to another container to make sure it stays airtight. Here I have toffee from the cookies I made. Look at how they're stuck together. See how the humidity affects them? And I transferred them to here. And you've all seen me. I can scale this and make a whole cookie recipe using the formulator around this quantity. Or if I have just a little bit of, if this isn't a whole package, I can do the same thing with this. That is a great way to keep your food from getting old. If you notice any dates that are close to being used, you need to pull them, you need to Google some recipes, and you need to use it up. That keeps everything in your pantry current. And if you take a look in here every now and then and just straighten everything up, you won't end up opening something when you already had something opened, or buying something when you already had it in here. And then down here I have grains. I have oats and grains on the bottom. That's pretty much the only thing that goes in here. I don't alter that much. And this is how it should look. So if I want a family member or someone in my kitchen to keep it that way, I am going to have them take a photo. I don't go up here very often, so I put things on top that I just use infrequently. But these are all things that live on their side. These are gum paste holders. They're actually locker. You know how you buy locker shelves and it's open shelving? You can use those for gum paste to hang things from to dry. Genius. I have some really beautiful cake boards up here. I really like these thin kind. They are really well made and wrapped very tight and very thin, but they're super strong. They don't bend. I think these are nice if you're going to do a cake board. And then I have gum paste stuff up here that I don't want to get bendy. And then here's my cake frame. I use these a lot when I'm making bars and stuff. And then I have a fiberglass over here. Above this cabinet, I have books that fit, and I kind of put them in order of color of the rainbow. As you can see, they go from black to blue to the browns and oranges, and then a little bit of red at the end. Not a big deal. It's just a little way of keeping things cohesive and thinking about every detail. It adds order to the kitchen. Normally, I would not recommend that you store any food above the refrigerator. But again, if you feel this, enough of the heat of the refrigerator is dissipated. So this isn't warm at all. But if it is, you're going to cook your food and you're going to make it go bad quicker. So up here, I do keep my flours. So you can see that I had pastry flour and cake flour that if I were to put it into one of these containers, would only fill up the bottom. And so that is more surface area, which means it's going to go bad faster. Plus, it's not good for space saving. And I like to keep larger ones open for other product. So I put it into these deli cups, but I also know I need to use it soon. So rather than open a new bag and put it into a large container, I'm going to wait to open this pastry bag until I absolutely need it. Now on a lot of bags and things with your flour, it'll tell you the protein content. And I know this pastry flour is 8%. So what I do is I write the percent on the label. And I label it because you're not going to remember what flour is in here. You're just not. So they need to be labeled pastry flour 8%. That is this brand. That is why it doesn't matter if it's called pastry flour. It matters that it's 8% because this cake flour is 9.4%. The percentages tell me way more than the name of the flour. And then I do the same thing here. I have the AP, the bread flour percentages, and then this is a bread flour and whole wheat mixture I use for my starter. But I have extra bread flour back there, and I'm aware of that so that I get going. I need to think about, I need to start making bread. I need to do something to use that up because I know what the use by date is. And instead of just letting it sit there, I actually want to utilize it. So maybe I incorporate into my videos something that uses it. That's how I use it up, and that's how you should think. And then if you're going to buy boxes of things, I have cake flour and I have soft as silk cake flour. These are completely different. This is unbleached and this is bleached. I typically use unbleached, but a lot of Rose Levy Berenbaum Cake Bible recipes call for the unbleached. So I have both, but this one's 10% protein. And isn't that interesting because cake flour is 9.4, but this cake flour is 10%. So this must be a different brand. I don't know what the brand is. It doesn't matter. I know what the protein content is. So I used a Sharpie and wrote that on there. So these are my flowers, and that's all that lives up here. Just my flour. And I pull everything out. I wipe down the cabinet. I consolidate into smaller containers that are clean. And I wipe everything down, clean it, label it, and then I put it back. And that is how I stay organized. All right, let's do my refrigerator, my freezer. When I used to teach every Friday, everyone had a different job all week. Some people had to clean dry storage, some people were on dish, some people had to do the walk-in cooler. And on Friday, I would have each team, it was 2 people, go around the room and just talk about what they learned, what problems they had, and what they wanted the class to know. And it was so great because sometimes they would say, you know what, I used to get annoyed that other people complained about something until I was in charge of keeping it clean. And now I understand. So it's really good to get different point of views on how things are managed and to include the people in your home in keeping things organized. It reduces the frustration. It doesn't take any extra effort. This is my freezer. It's really just a home freezer. I have a lot of syrup. Yes, I was going to do a syrup tasting, but I let that go. I have some almond crumble that's frozen, never baked. It's got a date on it. These are my cookies, frozen cookies. And I put the date on here, 9/5. I like bagged ice. I don't like the kind in the trays. I think it's gross. And this is a pie I need to bake because I made it on 4/27. I have to bake this. And then here I have some galette dough. Beautiful galette dough that I need to use. I was thinking of making a quiche. So there you go, that's my freezer. And then my refrigerator. I love refrigerators. So I organize my refrigerator the way professionals do. And what that means is I pay attention to the order in which I put food in the refrigerator. And it always goes from the temperature it needs to be cooked to be safe, from lowest to highest. Obviously you don't cook an apple, so the apple's gonna go on the top. A ready-to-eat sandwich is gonna go on the top. Mayonnaise that you just put onto a sandwich should be safe. Underneath it will go the things that need to be cooked at a higher temperature. So you'll go dairy next, and then meat and roasts and things like that, eggs, and then on the bottom will be something that needs to be cooked to the highest temperature, which is poultry. I've moved a lot and I've made professional kitchens in my home for decades. I don't look at a refrigerator or freezer just like I don't look at a kitchen the way that they give it to me. I take out the doors sometimes. I had a cake business, and so when I had large cakes in there, I would take out all the door stuff. Just take it out, put it in storage. That way when I closed the door, it wouldn't bump into it. Just take it out. I also remove a lot of the drawers, and I just look at them as shelving. If you have something drippy, it's really nice to put a small tray in there, like a 1/4 sheet tray or a 1/2 sheet tray. That catches anything that might drip. So if something is dripping onto something else, you need to think about, is that safe? So if you have ground beef with blood dripping down on your vegetables that are in the drawers they put into these refrigerators on the bottom, that's not good. So I recommend you look at your refrigerator different than you ever have, and I'll show you how I have things in here. This is not dirty. This is literally from scrubbing. Sometimes I scrub things so much I take the color off. So I keep the eggs down here. These are my egg whites that are dated and labeled. And then these are my ingredients that I have ready that I have scaled. I am making a chocolate salted caramel tart, shortbread, and some cheddar cornmeal scones. These scalings I did a couple days ago. They've been in the refrigerator. They're good for 7 days. All ready to eat food that you've now put through the system is good for 7 days. Obviously butter is good for longer. They're all labeled. I have my butters and cheeses, and that's some ganache. And then on here I have sort of my personal stuff. But if I'm gonna load my fridge up and I need room, I'm gonna remove these so that they're not in the way. Because sometimes they'll bump into a cake and I'll see icing on here. So that's how I do my refrigerator. And if I had meat, it would be on the bottom. So these are the containers I talked about that I get at the Container Store. And once I use them in the kitchen, they're no longer available to be used for my shoes or other things. But these are the boxes you see when you walk in Container Store. And they're kind of like sheet tray, 1/2 sheet tray, 1/4 sheet tray, 1/8. They all stack. They also come in 2 depths often. I would use this to put it into a drawer, and then I would put the things I need into here. I think anytime you buy into one of those systems they sell where they're trying to tell you how to be organized and they're selling you the whole thing, I don't know, I never have good luck with those. So I like to have these options. This lid fits on both of these, so that's really nice. But you can have this one closed and this one open, where I put cups and maybe a tall deli cup into here, and then my little guys, and these are just inexpensive from the kitchen stores. You can use this for everything. It's not glamorous, but you could use this for kids' art supplies, paint brushes, all your makeup tools. You could put your sponges in here and your makeup brushes, collect little things. It's literally good for anything, anything. So I highly recommend these. They're not expensive. You can get like a discount. If you go pick them up, you don't have to pay shipping, which is kind of nice. That is why I keep deli cups and these empty cups around, because they make my organizing so much easier. I like things that go together and kind of have a point in terms of their sizing and how they're organized. I have a propane range. I recommend twice a year pulling the range and the refrigerator away from the wall. If you don't wipe underneath your microwave and all your little equipment, you need to do that at least every 6 months. I do it every time, but you pull it away, clean underneath, pull any of the filters off or anything, and vacuum all the dust, get it clean, clean the floor, and then push it back. I store down here some things. I have muffin trays, I have my trivets, which I love from IKEA, the cork trivets, and these little things are not only heat insulators, but they catch any dripping. They're really great for humidity, like when you got a lot of condensation on your drink. But you want to pull this drawer out at least twice a year, completely pour it out, clean everything that's in here, clean the floor underneath, and then put it back in. I love the Dawn Power Dissolver for cleaning the oven. I have an oven thermometer in here. I consider oven racks to be one of those things that I know they put in 3 or whatever, but I take one out. And these actually fit on my speed rack, so you can store them this way, out of the way, or on a speed rack. I move these around almost every time I bake, because there's no right answer about how high or low or where you should bake everything. Everything's different. But I need to clean this a little bit. I have a couple tricks. When my oven is hot, I put a hot mitt on, and I either use tongs or my hand if I have a dirty hot mitt, and I use a really wet towel, and I wipe everything down immediately. When it's warm or hot, it cleans really well. Otherwise, twice a year, I pull these out. I use the power dissolver in the sink, and I use SOS. And I go every single rung. I clean there in every little groove. They look brand new. I pull everything out. I use the power dissolver for the glass and for the whole thing. And I wipe it out until there are no streaks from the cleaner and it is 100% clean. And the way to know stuff is clean is to side eye. You have to look sideways. And I can see that I need to do a little bit of work here. I've been baking a lot recently. If you want to know if something's on the top of your range or on your door, on your fridge, you have to look at it with a side eye so you can see the glare. It's the only way to know. So that's what you want to do in your oven. Oven knobs they're really used a lot, and they get really dirty and they come off. Now I've cleaned these to the point where the numbers come off, so you want to be a little more chill, but you want to clean behind and clean and put this back. This should all be clean. And then when you go to the cooktop, obviously your grates come off, but they're all made out of different materials. So you're going to have to decide what cleaner you use and how deep you go. You want to take them all the way off. Everything cleans better if you put it in the sink and get it nice and hot and warm and let it soak a bit. But if you wipe them every time, and if you see a spill or a drip, you get it up every single time. I mean, I hardly ever have to deep clean. The tops of these come off, and you need to keep these clean, and then you want to clean everything and make sure there are no crumbs or anything. And because you don't really want to spray the Dawn Power Dissolver on here, you might put some on a paper towel and clean some of the spots that are there. So you want to take it apart, put it back together, confirm that it works, put it all back together after you've cleaned it. So you want to clean all the crevices, Make sure that there are no drips on here. Everything should be clean, and I like to do this at least twice a year. Now, I hung this cute painting above here. I believe the kitchen is a place of fun. I'm pretty serious in a lot of areas of my life, I guess. But I like the kitchen to be fun, but this is going to get yucky. I hardly ever use this range because I use my induction. But if you're getting grease buildup, it's from the stove. Most people are supposed to have a hood. I don't. So if you do something decorative, you want to make sure that it's clean and that you make sure that it's not falling apart. I also keep my rolling pins here. This is just in a drawer divider. That works for me. I like putting things on trays, like just the lamp and a couple of things that go together. Here I have powdered food colors. I think they look kind of cute. This is an old Wisconsin Dairyland cookie box, which I love. And then I have the few cake stands that I used to have a huge collection, and now I just have the basics. You know, mostly it goes up to like a 10 or 12 inch, and then you're looking at height. So I have some pretty ones that I feature, and I have glass, and I love the hobnail. So if you are into hobnail, that's my favorite style. It's so versatile and whimsical. This is a really important example of making your kitchen modular. This is from IKEA. The shelves are completely adjustable, and it's on wheels. Now I have a little table here I'm going to show you that I don't want on wheels because I like the height. But what I like about things being on wheels, obviously you can move them around, but I highly recommend that when you buy something on wheels, you make sure it has locks. Because if you can't lock it, it almost becomes a hazard. I like to have things that lock so I can lock them in place for safety. So this is right next to my oven. So in here I have my giant whisk. This is my caramel whisk so I don't get burned. And my tongs. And then I have 2 thermometers, and this one has a magnet on the back. So over there is a little dot. That's a little magnet dot. So I can put my timer over there. And I've talked a lot about digital thermometers. This is an instant read thermometer where you open and stick it into meat or fish. It is not meant for pastry. Certainly not for sugar work. So you want to get either the chef alarm, which easily does everything in Celsius or Fahrenheit, but it has this cord. That is what allows you to stay safe. And when you are using a thermometer, this is the probe. This is where it's taking the temp, not on the bottom. So when you put this into hot sugar syrup, you're touching the bottom of the pan, but you're getting the reading up here. And I have an expensive one. This is a couple $100, but it's really nice and easy to use, and it's got its own little rubber jacket. You could throw it off the roof and it probably wouldn't break, but it's expensive. The chef alarms come in really cute colors. They're about $60 to $65. So then I have my hot mitts. This is a smasher one of my students gave me from their grandmother. When their grandmother died, this is one of her favorite kitchen tools, so he gave it to me. I love Spider. This is one of the best tools ever for picking things out, like dumplings. I have a lot of zesters, and I have a lot of sifters and scoopers. And then this is one of my favorite tools. This is Fat Daddy-O's, and the reason I like it is I use it to actually pull out pies and heavy things because it will not bend. It is very sturdy, and I love it for that reason. I don't use it for cookies or anything. I use it for heavy pies because I don't want them to bend. So then here is my Boost table. It was a gift to somebody for their wedding. It had been in storage for a couple years. It's a perfect size, but the bad thing about it being in storage is wood is alive. Like it needs to be oiled, and so it did dry out. That's why I no longer buy things like this on Amazon. Here are my Boost cutting boards. I don't buy these on Amazon either. When you buy directly from Boost, yes, you have to pay for shipping, but it comes directly from the people who make it, and they dip it in oil and then wrap it and send it to you. So when I feel like oiling all of my wood, I do my table, my cutting boards, and all my tools and utensils. And it keeps them looking beautiful, and they won't crack. And that's very important. So this is my speed rack, and I talk about speed racks a lot, and a lot of people say to me, I don't have room for one. When I tell you this is your storage solution, it's like you don't not have room for one. If you look at a closet differently, don't look at a closet that has, take the shelving out. If you can slide this thing in, it's vertical storage, and you will increase your storage capability by 10 times. I have full sheet trays up here that I obviously never use because they don't fit in my oven. This is a sheet tray that has my parchment on it. I buy a big box of whole parchment, and then I cut them in half, and I do a bunch. It's like a little side job I do where I cut a lot of them. So those are always there. And then I can cut those smaller to go on my quarter sheet trays, which is my nightly cookie size. And this is my favorite. I love these little trays. And then look, I have many sill pads in this size and I store them that way. And then on here, I have cork. I love this cork sheet from IKEA. It's in the office section. You can trim it to fit. It is so great. It absorbs moisture, it's antimicrobial, and it's softened. So you could line trays or your drawers, and all of your tools are going to be taken care of a little bit better because of that. I have the full sheet silpats, which I use for making pie dough and rolling things out, and my half sheet. And here I have my silpat, which I love. These are for making bread and tarts and other things. So those are two different things, and I keep them clean. And people always ask me, how do you keep your silpats clean? Don't just wipe them down, clean them off with soap. Let the soap work. Dawn is great. Even if you like natural soaps, I recommend Dawn for the kitchen. Make sure it goes back clean, and they'll last forever and they'll look good. Here's a little bit of gum paste stuff. And then this is how I keep my recipes for the week. I have 2 half sheet trays, and on each are all of the ingredients that can be at room temp with the recipe tucked in. So tomorrow morning I can come in, pull these out, pull what I need from the refrigerator, and I'm ready to go. This is on wheels. It's very narrow. And just so you know, you can buy different grades of speed racks that are really strong, super wide, super narrow. So there are a lot of options, and it's probably the #1 thing I recommend. That's an old window from a house we lived in. I had it turned into a mirror. And this is what the kitchen looks like, again, just as a point of reference. So that's kind of where I put a lot of stuff. If you've put anything on the floor, don't put it on your countertop or table. Keep grocery bags, boxes, things like that off the workspaces. So for the oil for the wood, I use the John Boost mystery oil, but you can use any mineral oil. It's a lot less expensive. There's a ton on the market. I don't have a preference for the brand. You want to use a lot. You don't want to be worried about the cost. And in a professional kitchen, they'll take a day that's going to be off, and before they leave for the night, they'll saturate it, just drench it, and then let it soak in overnight, and then wipe it off in the morning. And that's a great way to make sure that you're on a schedule. Do that once a week. So this is my main pantry. I'm just going to show you a couple of concepts. Up here, I have more like what I call chemicals, which is like white vinegar and just kind of odd things that are up there that I don't use very frequently. But this is my pantry. And here's what I want to show you, okay? I'm going to show you a couple of concepts. When you do your pantry, you want it to be in categories. And you can tell up here I have liquids and extracts. And here I have salts are over here, spray, fats, dry things like espresso powder, and my bitter cube bitters. Here I have a lot of my sugars, most of my sugars, everything from my brown sugars and coconut sugar, donut sugar, sucrage, pearl, Swedish pearl, super shiny disco sugar, raw, and pearl sugar, powdered sugar, 10X, and sucrose. I almost went out and bought more salt until I realized we had bought Jacobson's. It doesn't go old. You don't want to just add to this. You want to get a new container or wash and allow this to air dry. Dump out what's in here, add the new, and then put the old on top and label it. This is sea salt. Remember that all of your seasonings are TCS foods, meaning they can be contaminated. I always use a little palette knife to pull my ingredients out of these containers. So this is my kosher salt. I'm almost gone. Instead of just adding more, I'm going to get a clean container and a funnel. Everything in here is facing forward. It's all labeled. I have this little cute box of diamond crystal salt. So I'm going to go ahead. Normally I would do this over by the sink. Fill this up. So then I'll get it through and I will dump this onto the top and this will go in the dish. And we have the sugars, and then on the bottom I have all my chocolates. If the refrigerator was warm, that would be a bad idea. I don't take bags like this that are almost empty and transfer them to a deli cup. This is the best container for the chocolate. Cocoa powder, and I have a fresh bag. I am not going to open that fresh bag of cocoa powder until this is gone or I'm using it, because I want everything to stay fresh as long as it can. If you are going to do a deep clean, you're going to pull everything out and you're going to start at the top. You're going to wipe down all of the shelving and everything, and then each thing should go back clean every time you use it, but you're going to wipe everything down. You're going to look at it, you're going to read the dates, and you're going to pull out and leave anything that needs to get gone or be used or replaced. And then when it's clean and wiped down, you're going to put it back in. All the labels are facing forward. And this way I know what I have, so I'm not double buying things or wasting time or money. This is my storage area. In here, that's just a movable IKEA cart, and then I have the Metro shelving. I pay attention to where baseboard heat is, because if you were to put food or something that could melt if you had really hot heat, that is for sugar blowing. That glass, I have some decorative things. I have all of these containers are the same. I don't want containers that have different shaped lids, different color lids, or different brands that don't stack. Here I have packaging, my sugar dome molds, and then some little tools and supplies. This is stuff for plating if I want to make something look pretty. And then I have cake pans. Those are my little mini 4-inch brownie testers, which I love. I have a lot of cake pans from through the years. There are my pie tins. Those are the bowls I use when I make large batches of things. The container on the left is to transport cakes when you use it upside down or for dry storage. I have these bins, and in the back to the left you see my tea. So I knew I was low, so I've ordered more. On the right are things I use for gluten-free baking and things like rice flour in smaller quantities. There's xanthan gum in there and some chemicals. And then to the right are my spices. Spices need to be replaced. They get old, and I tend to replace them in the fall for baking season. And then here are my spices, and here are things that are flat. And look at this, is the IKEA cork thing. I just love them, so I have extras. Here you can see I have bags and bags. I have samples of packaging. I have all my silicone molds. That is some odd equipment for fermenting, and some sugar molds. These are my boxes and bags and more, and extra deli cups. Back here I have all my tammies. And then down here I have, pasta rollers and my knife sharpener and some other unusual tools, cake boards. And then I make sugar domes and use some styrofoam for cakes. I have my file cabinet here. This actually to me is a mess. I need to go through and get these all organized. I've been adding files and adding recipes. I need to continuously go through here and consolidate and get rid of repeats. But a lot of these exist on my computer, but I like to have the printed version. And then here are all the same containers. This is an old shelf. This is a closet. When you take the doors off of a closet, you create a storage area. And you can see I got these hanging baskets from IKEA. In here I have all my ribbons. In here I have some power cords and other things on the side. I keep my broom and my vacuum here. I have all my tips up here, carving tools, lids for my jars, all of my gum paste equipment, scoops. Here are the measuring spoons that I use when I need them. If I have an ingredient I don't have a conversion for. Stickers, scissors, leaf cutters, crimpers. I do a lot of nature stuff, so I have faux bois, which is fake wood, and some chocolate stuff, and I have flower cutters, silicone molds, art supplies, and then Mini World. And then I have my stickers. Here are my molds. That container I know has some mini pans and things in it. And then here I have a limited supply of dusting colors. My 50-pound box of Sweetex. And then over here, I have a giant egg mold that I love. And then these are my binders. And I'm not actually even adding to these binders anymore, but I use these for inspiration. I have a lot of tear outs for magazines. And then I do compilations like bread. Those are all the bread notes and things I've collected. Pie, that's a huge binder. My Thanksgiving recipes. And they're all in white. And I've used them for years. Now you can tell I have labels on everything, and I have two kinds. I have two label makers, the narrow kind and the 1-inch, the big. So I use the label maker literally for everything. It comes off, it doesn't stick, and I actually print them out and use them in here instead of writing these. That's just a label. So then you get uniformity as well. Then I have this little freezer because I need a little more freezer overflow, and it doesn't take care of its own frost, so I have to defrost it. That's my dog's food, nuts. I have purees and some extra ice for when I run out. This is kind of the bathroom hand sink. And then what else can I show you guys? In here I have mostly my books that are on bread or compilations of cafe. So this is all bread. And then we get into these interesting older books that I love. An old gourmet book, very famous, really good Chez Panisse. These are old books that I buy online. This is a painting of a sifter that Dave bought me one Christmas, and I absolutely adore it. This is where I work, where I sit and I edit my videos. Lou usually sits right there in the window. And I have some things over here of interest. I have my pastillage orbs and spheres. I have my cake turn tables. This is one of those guys where you can put the styrofoam in there, and I highly recommend it. It really makes life easy. I have 2 cake stands that are silver and that are square. I really like square cake stands. Here's one of my pastillage orbs. These hang on the wall, but I can't hang them in the summer because of the humidity. They'll fall because they're sugar. But that's what they look like, and they're all sugar. So it's pretty cool. And then I just have like all the little doodads and gadgets people have given me, or gifts and things over the years. And then I hang a couple things from these hooks on the end. I have my Hamilton Beach juicer and my food processor, and I have a few sieves. Now that is a bamboo cutting board that cracked in half, so I just made a pedestal out of it. Here I have copper things that I've been gifted and a juicer. And then I have other containers. They're all NSF. Some are square, some are round. And I use them in different ways. And then all of these books are my social justice food books and books about the kitchen that aren't necessarily recipe books. That is a big roll of craft paper I use. I love wrapping everything in craft and using pretty ribbons. And I love succulents. Look at this. I use sieves or strainers to put my succulent gardens in. And what I love about it is that they grow through the holes. You see that? So cool. So these, I have a whole collection. I've become obsessed. I have a cork on here because that is where I put my drinks. It softens things. I like it. And then this is one of my favorite things to do. That is a stainless steel table that used to be waist high, that I had the legs cut at a local hardware store for about 50 cents a piece. And I made it into a coffee table. And I like it because it has an underneath that you can load up. This can handle a lot of weight. And then I have a handmade, really large, 22-inch round cake stand that's a showstopper. And I love a pot rack so much. I put them anywhere and everywhere I can. And that is an IKEA island, literally from like 2000. Another file cabinet. And if you notice, everything in here is in those color tones that I talked about. This is a rolling cheap, I don't even know what you call it, but it rolls around like at the dentist. And I just put a Silpat in here, and I use this every day for my tea. And this is one of those Bodum, it's a coffee maker where you put a filter in it, but I add tissue to it. I think that's cute. And then IKEA obviously has great things, but I noticed this for organization. And in here I have a plastic cup. I have another little coffee maker. This is a coffee maker. And this is a little beaker. So I kind of try to reutilize things the best that I can. I have a cork underneath my computer, which is great. And I have goofy paintings and things. I get them at Marshall's or wherever I can find them at thrift stores. I love them, and I love the frames. And then that was my dog Chester. I had someone paint it, and then I needle pointed it. I keep more things in here that are about ingredient function and my receipts. So this is my drawer that I work out of. Pens and whatnot. More tools and supplies. And if you have too many office supplies, get rid of them. You don't need them all. Here's underneath. This stuff is probably the messiest my place is. That's my feelings wheel. I use my feelings wheel I got on Amazon when I'm feeling a certain way, and I look and I see what's the root. What's the root of the feeling? That's one label maker, and I have another one, and I keep all my cords and stuff in that box. And it doesn't matter if I know what they are. I know they're in there. And then I have Christmas and holiday baking books that I pull out once a year. This is for the formulator and for things that I use on a daily basis. It's something I drew because I just like to scribble. And then this is a dry erase board that I can write on with a dry erase marker. And then this is a peel and stick frame. But you can see I have some books I've never opened. They're like little presents. made a header. I know how amazing this is going to be, so I just kind of keep it as a little present. But here is an example of how I use those containers with the cups. These are my office supplies. These are my books, and we can do a book tour at some point, but on the left are all my cake decorating. On the right bottom are all my chocolate, and on the top are miscellaneous. These are memoirs and social justice, many of which I can highly recommend. And then I have everything kind of together, and you can see who I love because I have more than one of their books. But Cake Bible on the left, leading through Sherry Yard, Tartine, and then there's cool ones like New York cult recipes, which I think. So I'm always looking for things that are unusual. And then to the right are pies. And then down here I have reference. The Flavor Bible, Flavor Matrix, and then other great things. And then over here are my textbooks, my math book and different things that I use. And I have some books here that I love. And I like stacking things. This is from the Neiman Marcus catalog that my product was in. And there it is right there. I use these little inexpensive easels to put my iPad on. And I did a charity function because I used to give away my work to kind of get people to know about my cake business. The person commissioned some artwork and this looked like my cake. So it was the one item that I bought that night. But I found this and I can't use it yet because there's no room for it, but I'm going to put it in a place of honor at our new place. It's like a little tool holder that the man who had ordered it years ago was boxed and it's never been used. So I had to buy it. And then I keep clothes over here, work pants that you can see. I try to keep stuff as organized as possible. I have boxes with the names of things. Everything is easy to find. So these shelves are from IKEA. They are not NSF. They're not fancy, but they have been in the garage. They've been everywhere. And I have ornaments, my fall gourds, and I have my shoes here. But I have them all labeled. Tank tops, turtlenecks, long sleeve, and then I have ornaments and shoes. And this is a little inexpensive IKEA bed and a washable rug. Everything has to be washable or I can't do it. I think that's it, you guys. Yeah, I just think you shouldn't fall into a plan or put pressure on yourself to be organized or to organize on certain days or whatever. You should look at organization as something you do to clear your mind. If you're feeling anxious or anything, I'm telling you, a way to center yourself is just to pull your pantry apart, wipe everything down, and put it back. Just don't make it too hard. I do dishes. I don't love dishes. I don't like cleaning. I like deep cleaning, but I don't like cleaning. But I do it because it helps center me. And sometimes when we feel scattered and we're not getting anything accomplished and we feel frustrated, it's a really great way to feel accomplished and to center ourselves. You just clean as you go, you clean in between, deep clean occasionally, and look at everything with fresh eyes. You don't have to do it the way you're told or have a master plan or a checklist or anything. Those sorts of things are what slows people down, so they never get anything done. I mean, that's how I live. And honestly, I have taught this and organized more kitchens than I can tell you. I'm challenge accepted. I love organizing a kitchen. Well, we're renting and we don't have a place to move yet. So I have no idea what my next kitchen is going to be, but whatever it is, I will make it work. And I will make it work because I have all of this equipment that I can move around. I am organized. My mom used to pay me to organize drawers and stuff. I love it. But the systems that I teach, they're just basic. Where does this live? Everyone knows where it lives and that's where it goes. And if someone is actively not putting stuff back in your home, even though they know where it goes, there's a reason, and it has nothing to do with it's hard, because it's not hard to put stuff back where it goes. Clean and organized. I know how hard it is to be organized, but if you just do one thing at a time, you just decide you're gonna make your pantry more organized and then just stop. Just make that better. Or make one broom closet better, or your refrigerator, attempt to do that a little bit better, or go through your spices and see what's old and get rid of stuff. It feels good. It's no pressure. Nobody's making you do it. You don't have to put it on a list, doesn't need to be on a schedule. You don't have to do anything a certain way, but just to tackle it is really, it gives you control and makes you feel accomplished. It's a really good thing. Only 2 more weeks in my beautiful, happy kitchen studio, the practice of pastry studio. But hopefully the universe will show up and we'll find a new place that's great. I know I don't have any junk though. Honest to God, we've moved so much. We are lean. So glad that you guys asked, and now this lives forever. So I'll always know what my kitchen looked like, which is great. Thanks. I know it was a lot. Hopefully you weren't bored. Happy baking. Thank you, everybody. See you Saturday.